Hi everybody, and welcome to another One History Help video with me, Mrs. O'Neill. This is the fourth video now in the series which looks at the causes of the Second World War, and we're going to be moving now on to the later 1930s, looking at the successful attempt at Anschluss in March 1938. Now hopefully you're watching this after you've seen the previous video which looks at Hitler's early attempts at Lebensraum, and also the videos which look at rearmament and the overview of the Second World War causes as well. Just coming back here to the main three aims that Hitler had with his foreign policy, because the successful attempt at Anschluss in March 1938 is going to cover a few of these different areas. So first of all, it covers abolishing the Treaty of Versailles, because as we're going to see when we just recap the key term in just a second, Anschluss itself was directly forbidden under the Treaty of Versailles. We'll talk a little bit more in a second and recap about why that was. And it's also part of the idea of conquering Lebensraum, expanding that German living space for those pure Aryan Germans, and also is a good opportunity as well to be uniting the German-speaking people as well. Okay, so we're going to see that with the successful Anschluss. I need to definitely spread those words out a bit better, of March 1938. So again, just as a recap, what do we mean by the term Anschluss? Anschluss means union, and in this instance we're talking about the union between Germany and Austria, them uniting as one overall country, one overall nation, and this was something that was directly forbidden under the Treaty of Versailles. If you want some more detail about this definition of the term Anschluss, I would very strongly recommend, if you haven't done so already, taking a look at my video which looks at early Lebensraum attempts that Hitler made in the earlier 1930s. So Anschluss is this union between Austria and Germany. In this instance, it was directly forbidden under the Treaty of Versailles, and as we've looked at in our previous video on early Lebensraum, we know that back in 1934, Hitler actually tried to unite Austria and Germany, but it was a complete failure. It was a complete failure. Just a quick recap of what we can see here. Again, if you want more detail, check out my early Lebensraum video, which goes through this in a lot more detail. We have the assassination of the Austrian Chancellor Dollfuss in 1934 by members of the Austrian Nazi Party. Hitler sees this as his opportunity to unite Austria and Germany by becoming Austria's new chancellor, but he is stopped by this guy here, Mussolini, who is at this time not Hitler's ally. He stops Hitler, saying that Mussolini is trying to protect Austria's independence. Hitler learns from this opportunity that if he is going to successfully take over countries, he needs a stronger military, and he needs this guy on side. He needs to make him his ally. And if we hopefully have seen this from the video I did on rearmament, we will know that by the time we get to 1938, which is when Hitler is successful at achieving Anschluss, we have got a lot of those problems that he experienced back in 1934. They have been very much crossed off the list. So by 1938, he has got that alliance from Mussolini. That happens after the Abyssinian crisis and after the invasion of the Rhineland in 1936. He has also had the opportunity from 1936 through into 1938 to try out some of his newly conscripted military, all of those new tanks and so on and so forth, and also lots of new battle tactics like the Blitzkrieg in the Spanish Civil War. And then when we get here into 1938, this German army has increased from 100,000 to 800,000 men. He has now got an army strong enough to intimidate other nations, and that's going to be really important when we look at what actually happens in 1938 when he is successful at uniting Germany and Austria. Let's get into the actual events of the successful Anschluss of 1938, but we're not going to be starting in March. We're going to be going back a couple of months earlier to January 1938. Before I go into some details, let's take a look at these two people here on the screen. I'm going to start off with this guy on the right here. Okay, so this guy over here. We are looking at someone called Schuschnigg. Schuschnigg was the Austrian Chancellor, and it's important for us to link back to that earlier event of failed Anschluss or attempted Anschluss, because he is the guy who takes over following Dollfuss's assassination by the Austrian Nazi Party back in 1934. So by the time we get to 1938, Schuschnigg here has been in charge for 4 years. On the left, we have got Seyss-Inquart, and he is a leading Austrian Nazi Party member. You can see his little swastika badge on his tie there, for instance. He is going to be really important when we start to see how the events of successful Anschluss actually play out in March 1938. But going back to January. In January 1938, there were lots of Nazi-led demonstrations in Austria against the government. Just to give a bit of context here, by 1938, if we look at it from a perspective of Nazi Germany, and some of you might be looking at this, having studied Nazi Germany as part of your GCSE history course, and you will already know that 1938 is a real significant year for Hitler and the Nazis, because it's really the year where they are at their peak level of power. They literally have the German people in their hands. We have got a lot of key events which happened in 1938. We're only looking at it from a foreign policy perspective, but also from a domestic policy perspective. There are lots of things that are going on that really demonstrate that the fear, the terror, the control of the German people by the Nazi Party is incredibly strong at this stage. So this idea of the German Nazi Party, Hitler essentially telling the Austrians what to do, is incredibly logical, and it makes perfect sense that they would go along with what the Nazis wanted as well. So lots of Nazi-led demonstrations in Austria against the government. Now, this guy Schuschnigg previously had said when he became the Austrian Chancellor that he was actually relatively happy to work with the Austrian Nazi Party. But in those 4 years that passed after his appointment in 1934, he realised that that would be increasingly difficult. So in 1938, in January, the Austrian police force raided the headquarters of the Austrian Nazi Party, and they were able to uncover plans which showed that they wanted to overthrow Schuschnigg. They wanted to get rid of him. And Schuschnigg knows exactly how the Nazis like to get rid of people who are standing in their way. So panicked, Schuschnigg chooses to meet with Hitler, and he goes to Germany to meet with him. And it's such a real fascinating power play that goes down at this meeting, and really shows how by 1938 Hitler is so buoyed up with confidence that at the meeting he essentially tells Schuschnigg how things are going to go down. So here's what he says is going to happen. If you want my support, Schuschnigg, this is what you need to do. First of all, you need to put Seyss-Inquart as the Minister of your Interior. That is a really significant position in Austrian and German politics at this time, the Minister of the Interior. And one of the reasons Hitler is very keen for Seyss-Inquart, a Nazi, to have this position is that it would put him in charge of the police force. So a really, really valuable person to have in a very strong position in Austrian politics. But not satisfied with that, Hitler also told Schuschnigg that he needed to put other leading Nazis in other important positions in the government. For instance, ministers of finance and ministers of war. He wanted them to be Nazis as well. He also wanted all restrictions on the Nazi Party to be lifted. And we can understand why those restrictions were in place if we think about the activities of the Nazis in 1934. But Hitler is like, nah, I'm done. You need to let us do what we need to do, in his words. He also wanted all Nazis to be released from prison. He would have seen them there as political prisoners, and he wanted them released. And to stop Schuschnigg kind of saying, I'm not going to do that, Hitler puts in a little warning, a little threat, if you will. And he says to Schuschnigg, you've got 3 days. You've got 3 days to make all of these changes, or I'm going to roll in with my tanks and I'm going to invade and I'm going to take over your country by force. And what Hitler was really, really banking on and what he was really pushing at this meeting was it was what the people in Austria wanted. He was convinced, being an Austrian himself, he thought it was only natural that the two nations would want to be united. So he says to Seyss-Inquart, this is what I want. You've got 3 days. Otherwise, my army is moving in. Now, let's just have a quick rewind back to 1934 when he almost tried this previously and was stopped by Mussolini. Well, that's not going to be a problem now because Mussolini's on his side. And also, he's got the massive advantage as well of having this huge military to back him up. Okay, back in 1934, he hardly had anybody. No reintroduction of conscription at that time. The slow rebuilding of rearmament was going on. But now he is armed to the teeth. And he knows that a threat like that has muscle and power behind it. But Hitler clearly underestimated Schuschnigg. And he had to think about it. And he realised, nice try, Adolf. But I know what you're after. Schuschnigg knew that he wanted the countries united, and he also knew that Hitler wanted to be able to prove that it's what the Austrian people wanted. Okay, that's the kind of a whole idea he was going to go along with. I'm uniting these two countries because it's what the Austrian people want. But, Schuschnigg thinks, I should say, I know my people, and I don't think you're quite as popular as you think you are. So Schuschnigg says to Adolf, to Hitler, I'm going to hold a plebiscite. And if you need a bit of a reminder of what we mean by a plebiscite, take a look at our Early Lebensruam video. I'm going to hold a plebiscite and get the people to vote for what they want. And if they vote no, and that they don't want Germany and Austria to be reunited or united at all, then your threat of an invasion loses all of its power. So Schuschnigg totally plays Hitler at his own game, and Hitler is totally mind blown by it. He wasn't expecting it at all. And now we see Hitler is suddenly on the back foot. Okay, Hitler is on the back foot. So he goes back to Schuschnigg when he hears about the plebiscite. On the 11th of March 1938, Hitler says to Schuschnigg, you need to postpone this plebiscite. Okay, we will let the Austrian people have their say, but we're not going to do it yet. Schuschnigg is in a kind of tight position here. He can either say, nope, I'm not postponing this plebiscite because I know that the Austrian people aren't going to necessarily vote the way you want them to. But Schuschnigg also knows that Hitler, even in March 1938, 18 months before World War II breaks out, Schuschnigg knows that Hitler appears to have the support of Britain. France, probably less so, but nonetheless there is an element of support there. And Italy. Remember, don't underestimate the power of Italy at this time. So if Hitler appears to have the support of Britain, France and Italy, if I go against Hitler's request, then I may get on their bad side. Okay, and Schuschnigg knows that he needs all the friends he can get at this time. So he is almost, he hopes anyway, playing the long game. So he says to Hitler, fine, we'll have the plebiscite, but we won't do it just yet. So Hitler is like, boom, you played right into my hands there. So you've still got to make all those changes that I requested. And while we're at it, you're going to resign as well. And you're going to hand your power over to Seyss-Inquart. He's going to become the new Chancellor of Austria. Schuschnigg has totally shot himself in the foot. Totally shot himself in the foot. He was so intimidated by Hitler and the military strength that he had absolutely no choice. And they don't mess around at all. They don't wait. Schuschnigg leaves on the 11th of March, on that same day where Hitler says, "You're resigning, buddy. Okay, off you go." He doesn't even ask him to resign. He says, "You're gone. See you later." And Seyss-Inquart is put in power that very day. And on that very day, on the 11th of March, 1938, again, I'm massively paraphrasing here, but Seyss-Inquart is like, "I've been in charge of Austria now for a couple of hours, and I can see that as a country, it's in total chaos. We are not strong enough as a nation to be able to control the madness that's going on. So we need Germany's assistance. We need your support, Hitler," he is saying. And so what happens from the 11th of March is that Seyss-Inquart basically becomes Hitler's puppet. And he will do whatever Hitler wants. And it's all okay, it's all above board, because Hitler and Germany are there helping out in Austria's time of need. Anschluss, however, has not been achieved just yet. On the next day, the 12th of March 1938, this is when the Nazis invade Austria. And I say invade, but it wasn't like a military massive bloodshed style invasion. In fact, no blood was shed whatsoever. And actually, the reception they got was quite the opposite. As you can see from this photograph down here, people were cheering for them as they entered the towns. This is in Vienna, this photograph here specifically, but all of the towns across Austria had huge warm welcomes for the Nazis. There's lots of photos as well with soldiers being gifts and flowers and things like that. And you may well be thinking, "Oh, well, maybe Schuschnigg didn't know his people so well after all." But actually, the Austrian people knew exactly who the Nazis were and what they were like. And they knew that if they did the opposite when the Nazis rolled into Austria, that they would be facing the same fate as those people in Germany who opposed the Nazis. So the fear, the terror, the control that the Nazis had over the people in Germany literally overnight swept across Austria as well. But even still here, Anschluss hasn't been achieved completely. They're a lot closer than they were at the beginning of the year, but they're not there completely yet. A month later, on the 10th of April 1938, Hitler says, "Yeah, do you know what? I reckon it's time for us to have that plebiscite now. We've been here for a month. Let's see what the Austrian people want." And the image that you can see on the right hand side here, one of my favourite images to use when teaching about Anschluss, is of a voting form, of a ballot paper, of the plebiscite that was held on the 10th of April. Bit of translation for you from the German wording here. It says, "Do you agree with the reunification of Austria with the German Reich, the German Empire, that was enacted on the 13th of March 1938? And do you vote for the party of our leader, Adolf Hitler?" Now, before we get into the bits down the bottom there, take a look at the language that is used in that sentence. How strong and vitriolic and nationalistic are the words that are being used. Our leader, for the party and our leader. Again, it's so strong. And again, it's all done under the cult of personality of Adolf Hitler. Let's talk about that bit at the bottom there. For those of you who maybe your German isn't so hot, Ja means yes and Nein means no. But take a look at this ballot paper, people. Like, seriously. Like, I can't, it just makes me laugh that this even existed and was allowed to go ahead. You would never in a million years get a ballot paper like this. Like, when I teach it to my students, I'm like, can you imagine a couple of years ago when we had the Brexit vote? Do you want Britain to withdraw from the European Union? Yes. Massive circle. Yes. Or no. Massive circle. Yes. Oh no. Yeah, you literally wouldn't get it anymore whatsoever. But this wasn't the only dodgy goings on. All of the polling stations in Austria were heavily manned by soldiers. So they were literally voting with a gun pointed towards their heads. Literally voting with a gun pointed towards their heads. So do you agree? Yes. You know, this big box here, yes, do you agree? I'm surprised, you know, if it was kind of a modern day, they probably would even have like flashing lights and things like that going towards it. Oh no, just down in the corner here. And that wasn't the only thing going on. There's soldiers there as well. So let's take a look at the results of this plebiscite, shall we? Here we go. Oh, let me see if I can just get rid of that going on there. There we go. So there we go. Do you agree with the reunification of Austria, blah, 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 blah? Do you vote for the party of our leader, Adolf Hitler? This is the result of the plebiscite. Let me give you some actual stats here. 99.75% of the Austrian people voted yes, which obviously leaves 0.25% who voted no. 99.75%. 99.75%. That is obscene. That is ridiculously high. That is practically 100%. You can see it in the pie chart there. But again, we know what the ballot papers look like, and we know that these people were voting literally with a gun to their heads. But to the outside world, people are going to see that result. People like the leaders of Britain, the leaders of France, and so on. They're going to see that result and go, hey, he's only doing what the people want. And it looks like the people of Austria really, really want a Nazi leadership and want to unite with Germany under the leadership of Adolf Hitler. So again, it's part of the earlier lessons from the early Lebensraum events that he learned in the Saar plebiscite, when 90% of the people of the Saar voted to rejoin with Germany. He knew that people couldn't argue with that because it was the people who made that decision. And exactly the same thing is going on here. Just to kind of sprinkle this in for you guys for a second here, linking events like this together is exam answer gold. It's history gold as well, if you're able to link those events together and see it as part of the bigger picture. And again, understanding why he's achieving this in 1938 when he was unable to do it back in 1934. So just to kind of finish up really, let's think about what's going on in the minds of other nations at this time. Well, Britain and France, when Anschluss is achieved, are kind of like, well, that's that then, really. Britain in particular, again, we know from previous events in the 1930s, are very much aware that the Treaty of Versailles was unjust and unfair. And a lot of people in Britain as well believed that actually it was only logical that Austria and Germany would unite together because they were both German-speaking nations, much like how the Saar back in 1935 with their plebiscite. They were a largely German-speaking territory. It makes perfect sense for them to reunite with Germany. That's going to be really important when we get to later on in 1938 into September and October 1938, when we get to the Czech crisis with the Sudetenland. So when Hitler knows that uniting German-speaking peoples is okay in the eyes of the Brits and the French, he is able to use that to his advantage. It's also worth being aware that even still in 1938, 18 months before the outbreak of World War II, Britain and France are still a lot more scared of Stalin in the Soviet Union than they are of Hitler. They are worried about Hitler, but no way near as worried as they are about Stalin and what is happening in the Soviet Union and how powerful the Soviet Union is becoming. Thank you so much for watching this video all about the successful Anschluss of 1938. Looking forward to doing more videos on the causes of the Second World War, especially now that we're getting into those final 2 years before the outbreak of war in September 1939. If you've enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, give me a like there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well so that you can get those updates of when new videos come through. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at OneHistoryHelp. And you can also find me on Facebook. Just search for One History Help. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you again very soon on another One History Help revision video. Bye!